with all due respect.
I got here.
Fine. Yeah, we're good. We're recording well, I had to hit record early because I felt like we were going to have a whole podcast before the podcast of conversations
Yeah.
and before we went live. Hey guys, this is Josh and Gray again with all due respect. We have Kate Johnson, also known as a Nurse Kate, as she calls herself, right? Um,
She was
Gray, look,
deemed Nurse
Team
Kate.
Nurse Kate. Great.
Husband
Talk about
baby.
how a little bit
Yes.
how you found Kate. Like you said, it was one of your
I
first follows.
I was trying to remember how we followed each other on Instagram, but I know it's been a really long time that I followed you. And I want to say it was like when I first started my fitness Instagram actually 6 years ago now. And I think it was a connection with Jordan Syatt, but I don't remember what it was. And either it was like a recommended follow or whatever it was. But I think that's how I started following your page. So, one of my first follows on my fitness page when I started my career. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she
And
talked a little bit about she talked to me about you before. She's like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
found this video, sent me videos, talked about it, and then we have this list of people we want to be on the podcast, and it's you." And I went through your content yesterday, and I love it. It's very
Mhm.
it's uh I like it because it's out front and honest, right?
well, I think that that's what's like missing in the healthcare community as a whole at the moment. But we're getting there where we are having these like honest, real, authentic conversations. But that is something that has been has been very much lacking in what we are and are not allowed to talk about, and when it comes to like Western medicine.
Mm.
So
Right.
And being a nurse, you bring a great perspective, right? Because a lot of people are going to be like, "Well, you're medically qualified." Talk to us a little about your nurse journey. We talked a lot about it before we went live, but
yeah.
talk about a little bit about your nurse journey and what you started seeing and what got you to start really making content out there in the form that you do.
Yeah, so I spent the first part of my career. I've been a nurse for 15 years. Spent the first 7, almost 8 years as a bedside nurse working critical care trauma at a huge hospital in Washington D.C. and in Baltimore. And I saw the worst of the worst. Like I took care of the sickest patients imaginable, and that like sort of skewed me to think that all of Western medicine was this like kind of miraculous place where you could really save lives. But I started to notice that I was taking care of like younger and younger people who were coming in with preventable things, like they're having heart attacks and strokes and end stage organ failure when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s. And that started to make me ask, like, what's why are we seeing this? Like, how do I get to a place where you don't need my care because you shouldn't be here? And that led me to go work for Blue Cross Blue Shield, doing like primary care, like trying to incentivize primary care. And it was in working for Blue Cross Blue Shield that I really saw kind of the underbelly of the Western medical system, how it's set up, how it's designed, and the incentive structure. And for me, the light bulb moment of like, oh my gosh, we have a problem was sitting in a meeting and an executive from the sister pharmaceutical like agency that partners with Blue Cross Blue Shield was bragging that 90 cents of every medical dollar spent, so 90% of medical spend goes to pharmaceuticals. And that that stunned me. I couldn't believe that that was a true statement. That our focus is all on pharmaceuticals and like waiting until people are sick enough that they need pharmaceutical intervention. So that started me down this whole path of like, what are we doing? How did
Right.
we get here? And why are we here? And I wasn't sure like where I was going to find a place in my next iteration. So I did consulting work for the VA because I have a bunch of my family members are military, so that felt like a good place to like put some of my effort and energy. And while I was doing that, I was building this social media platform, and so now here we are.
when that person said they were bragging, because uh I've been in a meeting with an orthopedic group before, and they provided care at local high schools, and they had a meeting that bragged that they have over $2 million worth of billable services out of one high school, and they were bragging about it. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, we're killing it in this high school. $2 million this year of billable services out of one large high school. And I remember going like, wait, are we, I was like, is everybody cheering that? Like, are we cheering
Yeah.
that? When that person said that, and obviously in your head, you're like, well, that seems off. Was anybody else in that room hearing that going like, uh, I got a red flag on that too.
Yeah, this is how far down the like this is how skewed the whole system has become that the other executives I'm sitting with are all like, yeah, like that's right. And they're really proud of it because what they feel like is that that means that we are getting compliance with medication intake, which means that people are going to be, you're going to make them healthier. But if you take one step back, you realize that taking medications for preventable illnesses or chronic diseases doesn't make anybody healthier, right? We might be able to control your numbers, we might be able to stabilize your disease, but we're not reversing disease processes with pharmaceutical use. So they were really proud of that. Like that was something that they were very excited about.
Mm,
And I
uh,
think I was the only one who was like, guys, like
Do
yeah,
really?
we not see the connection?
Like
Yeah.
yeah. Is there
this
a difference between practicing medicine and practicing healthcare? I guess it's
well,
kind of
and that's exactly that it was exactly kind of the light bulb moment for me was like this is we have a sick care system.
Hmm.
yeah.
Not healthcare, right?
I heard Casey Means say until we incentivize being healthy or keeping or getting people healthy, we might not see much change until we have incentives for it.
Hmm.
Right. And I heard her say that I think it was the first episode, the first time they came out with Tucker Carlson. I think they did
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tucker Carlson one. And I remember sending it to so many friends. And I'm like, hey, please don't let your political bias of who you think Tucker Carlson is get in the way of listening to the real meat and potatoes of what these people are saying.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right. Please don't let your bias of wherever you are get in the way of the content that you're going to hear. Right. Don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, you know.
I
Um,
I don't know how old you guys are, but like to me, it's wild to see the kind of right side of the political aisle becoming the people who are championing health because when I was
Hmm.
you were like a crunchy like the crunchy moms were
yeah,
like
yeah,
the wacky like liberal moms.
yeah.
And now, like, it's like a complete reverse, which is so crazy to see.
Yeah, I think my opinion of that is that it's becoming more of like a personal freedom to be healthy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a right-wing biased stereotype, I guess, is having that political and personal freedom. But I do think that that whole entire conversation that they had with Tucker Carlson opened this door for more people to talk about this issue.
I think that's absolutely Tucker doesn't mind being like the first one through the wall to get bloody.
Yeah,
No,
He's
exactly.
like,
no, not
whatever.
always. Yeah,
So
yeah, it's
yeah,
a good way of putting it.
he'll platform he'll platform people he believes in, people who he
Yeah.
like and if you look around, you can see that we have a problem.
Hmm.
Like,
Well, your eyes tell you. I tell people, don't let your eyes deceive you.
yeah.
Right. Um, I I don't. I'm pretty introverted and I'm very routine. Um, and I live in a little bit of a tunnel sometimes in what I do every day, day to day, day to day, day to day. But the holidays force you to go out. The
Mhm.
holidays force you to go do things. You go shopping, you go. And when you go out and just get involved in public, your eyes tell you we're generally pretty unhealthy.
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
The eyes don't listen, don't let the media try to tell you your eyes are lying, right?
Right.
You're generally unhealthy. Um,
And if
When
you look
you
at national statistics show this, right? Like we have 50% of children who
Mhm.
are 13 and younger are now considered overweight or obese.
oh
We have an epidemic of fatty liver disease um, that is affecting children as young as 5. We have teenagers getting liver transplants because their livers are so overloaded with, processing both toxins and, our toxic food system.
mhm,
And also not doing anything to naturally detox, like being outside in the sunshine, running around, sweating.
mhm.
Like kids are sitting all day. Um,
Mhm.
so, I mean, even if you just look at that tiny demographic of like young children, we have a problem. And you see that too when you're out. You'll see like overweight, obese children, which is something that is a completely new phenomenon over the last 20 years. There really wasn't like an overweight child in this country until the last 20 years. And there are a lot of contributing factors, but like certainly the sedentary lifestyle that we all, like the Americans as a whole, tend to lead is contributing to that. Like kids are supposed to move.
Right.
When you okay, you're working at the VA and you start building this platform, right? Did that happen intentionally, or was it just kind of like, I got something to say? I got it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need to say some things and I need to get them out, and social media is a good way to get it out. Was it organic like that, or did you go out and be like, you know what? I'm going to build a platform for people on this subject.
It was very organic. It was like I sat in the backyard with my husband and was like, I need to figure out a way that I can like reach people to talk to them about prevention because like
Mhm.
this isn't cutting it. What I'm doing here isn't doing it. And it's amazing to work one on one with people. There's so much benefit in that. Like when you can actually be the caregiver and heal people with your hands, like that's an amazing thing. But I had this desire to like create more of a broader message. And if you go back to like my early content, it's so different from what I talk about now because I was very Western medicine. I really believed in kind of the like control your numbers and like
Yeah.
sure
Yeah,
that your
yeah.
numbers look good without really understanding the lifestyle piece that like makes the numbers look good. So now I focus really on lifestyle because that's where this whole thing is won or lost. I mean, you guys as like lifters, you know that your lifestyle either creates the ability for you to have the power to lift or it doesn't. And
Hmm.
you
Right.
have to like those things have to be matched up. Um, and I really didn't understand that when I started out doing this, which is which is crazy because I did spend like I this is my whole career. And to not know that as somebody who does this professionally, that's just like where the system is.
But were
Uh,
you ever taught that? Like when you went through school, was it a big focus as you're going through nursing school to say lifestyle is a huge part of actually feeling healthy and being healthy?
Not at all. In fact, I think one of the biggest lies that I learned was like this lack of focus on nutrition
Mhm.
and exercise. Like it's not that anybody tells you that those things aren't important, but there's so little focus on it that you just sort of think like it becomes this background thing or like, oh, diet and exercise, without having any
Yeah.
meaning, without having any like real impact. But also if you talk to physicians, they will like downplay the impact of lifestyle.
Mhm.
Like they don't believe that changing your diet will change your health.
And they don't
Yeah, yeah.
practice it either. We see that all the time where it's like the physician or nurses or your healthcare team doesn't practice lifestyle choices. So they obviously don't deem it important in their day to day.
We have a
No,
friend. We have a friend that comes on with us. His name's Mike Wines. He just finished PA school, and he's worked in. He has 2 masters. He worked in functional medicine, and then said, "I'm going to go to PA school because I want to get into the medical community with what I do." Right. So he's super highly educated, super highly smart. Has helped a lot of people with functional medicine type advice, and he goes, "I'm going to be good at PA, and I'm going to go work for a doctor that has a similar views that I do." And he goes, I'm really going to help people. Like in the heart of his hearts, he wants to genuinely help people. Like I believe him. Um, and he would randomly going through school and going through his uh, what do you call it? His clinicals, right?
Yeah,
He would
yeah.
send us
Rotations, yeah.
his rotations. He'd send us random stories,
Mhm.
and he goes, "Here's what I heard today from a doctor." And one of them was, "And nobody's going to follow lifestyle and diet anyway. Might as well just give them pills." I mean, you heard a doctor say that to him, and I'm like, Mike, why do they like? Wait, he said that out loud? Like,
Mhm.
he said that to you? He goes, yeah, and then he's going through PA school, and Mike did a lot of research. He actually was involved in some research with Aura Ring on sleep,
Oh, cool.
and uh, he's like, yeah, he goes, we had somebody come in and talk to us about sleep, and the first lecture we got was from on taking Ambien,
Yeah,
and there was no talk about anything to do with sleep hygiene. But yeah, if someone comes in they can't sleep, I just give them Ambien,
yeah.
and
But that's what I promise you that most doctors don't even know like what it would look like to help somebody with sleep hygiene. They wouldn't even know how to do it.
well,
This, yeah,
I
lack of
guess I'm
education.
so naive. I am so. This has taught me that I am so naive, right? I'm so naive and through what I've done for a living, and I tell people I'm a little bit different. I grew up in a home where we didn't have processed sugar, right? I'm 48, right? So I grew up in the 80s, right? 80s, early 90s, right? Um, is that Gen Z? Is that Gray? You know all that kind of stuff. Is that
I
Gen
have no
Z? I
idea.
don't know.
I only know what I am. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah, yeah,
anybody
yeah.
else.
And
No, Gen
and
Z is the new one.
is the no, no,
1979.
Yeah.
I'm Gen X. I'm Gen X. I guess I'm generation the later end of Generation X, right? But I didn't have processed sugar in the home. I wasn't allowed it. We had to eat was what was on the table. Both my parents were highly involved in exercise. Um, I grew up in a home where like it was just part of how we lived. You don't eat that, you do eat this, you do it. It was expected, right? And even, I remember even as a kid going to people's home and I'm like, they have fruit roll-ups here. I'm
Yeah.
coming over all the time. They have soda.
Yeah.
Like I was given 1 gallon of ice cream and one soda a week, a month.
Yeah.
That's it. And
That's
people thought
that's
it was so
very similar to
strict.
how I was raised. Yeah.
So by the time I got older, I always worked out. I always ate really healthy. And even when we feed my kid, my wife will tell you she grew up where you ate what you want, whatever you want, whatever you do. And I didn't grow up that way. And there's kind of that inner strife in our home between like he's got to eat green beans and grapes before he smashes fruit roll up, like fruit snacks, right? Like
Yeah.
he's got to do. So there's a little bit, and there's a little bit. Well, I wasn't born that way. I wasn't raised that way, right? So I'm a little bit different because I was raised that way. I'm still kind of shocked when I see people that eat bad or families that eat. I still a little bit lost in that. I also grew up in the culture in the communities where like, and I've said this before on here. Um, you always trusted the local community doctor.
Hmm.
Mhm.
You always trusted the local pastor. You always trusted the local guy um that ran the bank, and you
Hmm.
always trusted the guy that owned the grocery store. Those were like the four pillars of your community were those four people. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, I don't trust my doctor. I look at the local pastor, I'm not sure. The local bank guy for sure, right? Like I'm like, nope, right? And then the
Yeah.
food they're trying to sell me, I'm like, nope, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how we're there. We are there.
Yeah. No, we
Yeah.
we really are. And when you look at the incentive structures, like your grocer, for example, SNAP funding is such a big part of what keeps grocery stores in business. And 10% of all SNAP funding, SNAP is supplemental nutrition programs, so like food stamps. Um, 10% of all SNAP funding goes to soda. So when you walk in at the beginning of the month, when you see those huge soda displays right in the front of the store that the grocer has approved to have there, those are funded by the soda companies because they know that SNAP funding just hit, and they're there to entice and incentivize people to buy these products for in the forefront of the store, right in their face. Um, and so it becomes like these people are just like trying to stay in business, and so I don't blame them. Um, but we also like we need to step back and look at the incentive structures that drive all of this stuff. So whether it's the sodas in the store, the pharmaceutical companies, whether it is the incentive structure for your local doctor, which is like now this completely perverted thing. It's not about providing care for families. Like you get 6 minutes with a patient because your insurance reimbursement is dependent on you seeing as many patients as possible and just churn and burn. It's not about quality of care. And it leaves the average person in a place where like the institutions that they were taught to rely on, they cannot. Like um they're not part of our social fabric anymore. And now that people are waking up and realizing that this sort of almost authoritarian view that we had of these institutions and
Oh,
these
I don't think it's almost. It is authoritarian. Yeah.
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, yes. So it's, it's really time, it's time for a change. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about like this current moment is that we have the opportunity to make real change. And people are waking up. And, it, this is controversial, but it's true. You're, he says that people won't do lifestyle changes, right? Like they won't change their diet. They won't change their exercise patterns. They're not wrong. Like there are a lot of people who are like very resistant to making lifestyle changes. Part of it is that it's overwhelming. Part of it is that they don't know what to do. But for some people, they just would rather take the pill. They don't want to do it. They don't want to put the work in. And when you see enough of that, when you deal with enough of that, I think it really does jade the providers because it's very demoralizing and frustrating to like want to help people and not have that reciprocated because the amazing thing about your body, your health is that you're the only one who can do it.
Mhm.
Nobody can do it for you. So you have to take that ownership and we have to start changing the messaging of like somebody else is in charge of my health, like somebody else is going to take care of me to like, no, I'm in charge of my health. I have to take care of me. It's the decisions that I make that make the difference in my life. Like this is my body. So
Right.
I'm going to do the work. But we've like really given um that power away. And now, I think voice like you guys are helping people take that power back and say like no, I can do it. I will
Right.
do it.
You make a really good point. I try to not to um I don't try to demonize the medical community or doctors. I really do think a lot of people got into it because they want to help people.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
The system just doesn't allow them to really help people because they can't stay in business because they got to keep seeing person after person after person after person. They
right.
get 5 minutes with them. They get 10 minutes with them. I don't. No, I think there are some that are just I'm here to make money and I'm not too worried about it, of course. But that's anything, right? That's
That's
anything
anything.
you do. That's
Yeah.
anything you do. Um, I
You
think
guys know trainers who are like that.
yes, trainers are
Oh,
like that.
yes.
I work in education. We have a health department that I run through a private school. Um, there are people like that in education. They just want to teach it and get out. There are people like that in every business, right? They just want to clock in, clock out, go. Clock in, clock out, go, right? They don't want to go that extra, and that's fine, right? That's any
But
business.
yeah, and you're right too. Like it's even frustrating. I know Josh and I talk about it from time to time. It's even frustrating for us to work with so many clients and see them not implement the things that we're trying so hard to teach them. Right. So over time, it can make us jaded as well. It's like, I went through a period about a year ago where I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, it doesn't even matter because nobody's actually listening and people don't actually want to make changes. And everything that I tell them, they're just like, oh, well, I'll just eat 800 calories and I'll lose the weight like I've done before. And I'm like, okay, well, how well did that work? Because obviously, we're back to
I
the
do not.
start. Yeah. So Josh and I also talk about this a lot with each other. Where does it start? For me, I've always said it's got to be more a part of the classroom. I think it has to be learned from a young age. it needs to be more a part of like our day-to-day family life. Like we've talked about bringing home ec back or bringing like better nutrition classes into schools. Like where do you think it starts?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it starts like in the home because
Mhm.
the exposure that you get, like my 4-year-old knows how to make not independently, but she knows how to make sourdough. She like I bring her up on the table. She knows how to measure stuff. She knows how to stretch and fold. It starts early with like what
Mhm.
you are exposing them to and the expectations you're setting, as you said. Like your wife still struggles with this, into her 30s, 40s, like where the mindset gets ingrained from a very young age.
Mhm.
My kids will tell you that they can't have anything sweet until they eat their protein. And even when they're out, they say like, "Oh, I have to have protein first. Where's the protein?" And like
That's
it's
great.
it's like it's these little things that you can set in and just establish a baseline. And not that we're super rigid. We go get pizza and ice cream once a week. Like that is, it's not all about, it's not like being an extreme, but it is most of the time you need to make decisions that are going to make you the healthiest, strongest version that you can possibly be. And I really do think that that starts like from a young age, and
Mhm.
bringing like teaching people how to cook. It's stunning to me how many people do not know how to cook.
Mhm.
Like nobody taught. It's not their fault. Nobody taught them. But like if you tell them like make a chicken, they don't know how to roast a chicken.
Right.
It's like it's very very easy to roast a chicken, but it's so intimidating to most people. So I really do think it starts like in the house, in your home, with what you're doing and what you're exposing your kids to, and what they see you do.
Mhm.
Most importantly, my we have a little home gym set up, and my kids have like they each have their own little weight set, and they'll go out and they know how to squat, they know how to press, they know how to do push-ups, they do pull-ups, and they do them, but they take their little 1 pound weights and they're getting after it.
Yeah.
That's what they see me and my husband doing.
Wow, that's so awesome. We always say habits are caught, not taught, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's
Even the
it's
bad ones. Yeah,
exactly. So if they see
even the
you, like,
bad ones.
you tell them like, oh, you need to eat your broccoli, but you're eating Oreos. They're
Hmm.
like, no.
One of the things
Yeah.
we're trying to do in our school is bring back a platform that teaches kids how to cook.
Yeah,
Um, and
that's
because
amazing.
I go through the kids that are going off to college, and I go, if you had to cook yourself a meal, could you do it? They're like, I can make eggs.
Mhm.
Like I can, they're and they don't know how to cook, and I do think it starts with teaching kids how to cook. I do think that people don't know how to cook very good tasting, healthy meals that they can do long term over time and be satisfied with it. I think
Yeah.
we've lost that skill set. Um, I think it's not mimicked. One of the stories I tell all the time is I had a parent reach out to me and say, hey, can you help me because Billy loves eating hot dogs. And I don't get much of these emails anymore. I think because of my reply, I said, well, why are hot dogs in the house? Well, his dad likes hot dogs. And I'm like, I replied back, I'm like, do you, is that,
Connection.
yeah. I just stared. My
That's
reply
very.
back was like, dot, dot, dot.
I don't
Okay.
know.
You just answered the thing, right?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, yeah. And they replied back, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. We know. Okay. We get it. And I'm like, well, I'm confused. Like my
Yeah.
logic
Yeah.
brain, I'm confused at the question now.
Yeah.
Billy eats hot dogs because Big William sits on the couch and smashes through 6 of them a night.
So
And you want Billy to quit eating hot dogs? I'm confused.
this is where like physician like the providers get frustrated because you already know the answer. Like
Yes.
you know that the answer is that you need to stop buying hot dogs. Or maybe the answer is that, if you're going to buy hot dogs, you're going to cough up the cash and you're going to buy the, organic grass-fed 100% beef, not cured hot dogs that cost 5 times the amount. And you're going to be like, okay, like if we're going to do it, we're going to make it a nutrient dense option. Um, but like the answer lies with you. You are you already
Yeah.
answered. Good question.
Yeah. Sometimes in those situations, they're looking for us to be the bad guy,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
They're looking for us to sit down with the kid and scold them for eating hot dogs, and we're
Yeah,
like, no, you're the parent. Starts at the house, right?
yeah.
Right.
I'm not the bad guy. Um, have you found in the past, I'm going to say almost exactly 2 months to the day. What's the day? The second. Yeah,
Almost, yeah.
Almost.
we're almost there.
I-
Again, a controversial thing to say. Have you found it's become much easier to have these conversations with people since November 5th?
So I think on November 5th, people realized that what was once the silent majority is no longer silent,
Mhm.
and you are the majority. And
Yeah.
you are not crazy or wrong for questioning a lot of things.
Yeah, for putting your hand up and be like,
Yeah.
got a question. Yeah, yeah.
And I think people have found a lot of they found a lot of reprieve in knowing that this like the feeling that they have in their soul of like something is wrong, other people feel it too, and it
Mhm.
that like really resonated. So yes, I think it is easier to talk about these things. I think people are more receptive to it. I think that the merger between like this is not political anymore, right? Like you have
No,
RFK Jr., who is
yeah.
a legacy liberal.
Hmm.
You have Donald Trump, who's frankly whatever he is. I mean, I
Yeah.
know he flies under the Republican flag at the
Yeah.
moment, but he's
Not
certainly not
always. Yeah.
Republican.
Mm.
And I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have like these worlds merging that we never thought would possibly come together. And it's really encouraging because everybody's uniting under one mission, which is to make this country better and like fix some of these social fabric
Yeah.
issues that we have. And one of those huge pillars is our health. Like if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. I know that's cliche to say, but it's so true. And we have so many people who are in their prime years who are bogged down, focused on, like they feel like crap all the time. Like nobody has energy. Everybody is just like struggling to get through the end of the day. Um, and we have to fix that. And people are feeling that and they're finally
Mhm.
feeling like we have an outlet and we have a chance to actually make a difference. And it's really encouraging because I think it's the first time in my lifetime that I've seen an opportunity where we can really change the direction that we're going.
I agree. I can't agree more. And my biggest concern was, I really was hoping that we wouldn't let health become a political issue. That somebody wouldn't see me buying fruits and vegetables and making my kid go for walks with me and go, he must be a conservative. No, I'm not. No, I'm not like, I I hate labels in the first place for all things, but I told Gray when this first started happening, I said, I really hope it doesn't getting yourself healthy and questioning the pharmaceutical industry and questioning the food industry and looking at incentives. I really hope this doesn't become political because it's not. Make America healthy again is not a political statement.
I mean, it certainly shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, but I feel like people kind of make it a political statement. And I'm like, no, I feel like we all want to be healthy. And I guess my biggest concern was it became, everything is so polar. And
Mhm.
everything is so polar in our industry that there's no leeway for the middle ground of being healthy. But you're right. You made a comment earlier. Everybody who was once granola crunchy and washed their hair with coconut oil were considered, they were more of a liberal leaning side, right? And it's not. And you're right. It was, I mean, in the last 2 months, I feel like we are, from a health perspective, now allowed to be like, I got some questions,
Mhm.
right? I
Yeah.
would like to ask why. One of the things that was really concerning and when I feel like we're in the right episode, we're in the right area with what we're talking about. I now have inbox from friends who go, "Hey, this happened to me at my doctor's office.
Mhm.
What should I do?" And I had a friend that has a child, a toddler, um, and they're starting to question some of the, again, I'm not an expert, I don't know. I refer to people way smarter than me, but he wanted to ask some questions about the vaccine schedule for his child.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even say what he was asking. He just said, I have some questions because he got the email that said, hey, you're due for your next stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they removed him from their client list.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that happens all the time.
They
And that's
said, I am new to this. It
yeah.
blew, they said he got an email later or a letter later on that they were no longer patients at the pediatric care that took care of their daughter.
So that happens because of insurance. So insurance companies have incentive structures built into how they do their reimbursement. And in the adult population, so actually going back to the very beginning, this is why everybody was so excited when 90% of medical dollars spent go to pharmaceuticals, because one thing that Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, established was this attempt to create quality of care metrics, where you could have an objective metric by which you could say this provider is providing good quality of care, and that bled over into the private insurance sector, and the metrics are really compliance with medications and routine screening. So, did you get your mammogram on time? Did you get your colonoscopy on time? And do you take your medications? And in the pediatric space, there aren't a lot of medications and there aren't a lot of preventive screenings to be done. So, what does that leave you with? That leaves you with the schedule. So, making sure that patients are compliant with the schedule dictates how much reimbursement you are going to get at the end of the year, like your end of year bonus from the insurance company. I know this because this is actually exactly the space I worked in with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Um, so if you have, like, their benchmarks, if you have 80% of your patient population vaccinated, then you'll get this percentage. If you have, and these are all worked out in individual contracts, but if you have this much, you'll get 90%. If you have 95%, so these doctors are incentivized to create as much compliance as possible with the schedule. And one of the tools that they have at their disposal is kicking you out of your practice, and that creates a lot of fear. I don't know why this keeps dinging. It's on mute. The It creates a lot of fear in parents, because parents don't want to be kicked out, because, like, now what happens if I have an emergency? Where do I go? Who do I get help from? And that is it's a really perverse incentive, because it's all based around reimbursements. It's not based around what's best for your child.
Yeah.
I had this experience where my oldest, I was, I never questioned the schedule. And my oldest had a full on allergic reaction, where she broke out in, like, head to toe hives, had really high fever when she was 6 months old. Um, and her pediatrician said that there was no way that we could guarantee that it was from the vaccines. And so they weren't going to report it, and she would be resuming the schedule as normal. And I said, goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But, like, as a critical care nurse, I can tell you that if that was Tylenol, they would be like, your daughter has an allergy. She cannot take that anymore.
So
Like,
you have personal experience here. This
I
is a
have
personal, this is not like this is not, this happened to you.
yes. And I'm one of, I mean, this is, my story is so common. So many parents have watched their kids have adverse reactions and been gaslit. I just happen to have the background to know that I'm right.
Yeah. I was just really shocked when somebody was removed from the list simply because they wanted to sit down with the doctor and ask questions about it. He wasn't saying no. He
Yeah.
wasn't saying, I'm not coming in, we're not doing it. He wasn't belligerent. He goes, we just asked for an appointment to sit down with somebody to ask some questions to feel better about it.
Yeah. This exact thing actually happened to my sister a few months ago as well. Exactly.
I mean,
Her daughter's 7, and her daughter's, like, completely compliant. And she wanted to ask a question. Her son has some, um, had a near drowning accident, and she wanted to ask some questions about like, should we delay, should we change up the schedule at all because he almost died, and would this stress his body? Goodbye. They kicked her out.
Yeah, I'm no moral authority, but that just feels wrong.
Right?
Grace mouth is like,
No,
what?
but it is, it's great because it makes me think in my head, like, are these vaccines actually necessary for people? Like, no questions asked, or do you want payment from them?
They won't
Like,
pay.
yeah, are you getting
She
mad at
answered your
people because
question.
you, that's what I'm saying. It's like, are we doing it for the health of the people or are we just getting money?
I just don't understand why we can't ask why,
Right.
Well, you
right?
can't ask why, because if you start asking why, then other people will ask why. And truly the control vector here is fear. So they
Mhm. Exactly.
scare
Yeah.
you, and they make you compliant by scaring you. Now, I do think that most providers do believe that vaccines like are completely safe, because this is what they're taught, that
Hmm.
vaccines are completely safe,
Hmm.
and that there is like no risk associated with them, and that they are you the only real risk you have is not getting a vaccine, right?
Hmm.
So that's what they've been taught. However, the um, the Vaccine Protection Act of 1986 that cast into law that you are not allowed to sue a vaccine manufacturer for creating a vaccine that has caused harm, would beg to differ, because that was literally enacted because vaccines carry with them inherent risk that you cannot avoid and will cause harm to a certain percentage of the population, period.
Or else there wouldn't be a law.
There wouldn't be a
Right.
law.
Yeah. That's lobbyists won that, right? The lobbyists won, right? Um,
Yes,
And that's the 80s.
that's the 80s.
and
And
then
since that was passed, the vaccine schedule has quadrupled. So since
it's a
since
free for all now. It's
companies
free for
cannot
all.
be sued, if your child is injured catastrophically, you actually have to sue the secretary of HHS. So, and then there's a fund within HHS that
Slush fund. Yeah.
if you can prove that the vaccine caused harm, then you can get a payout from Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how easy or hard is it to prove that?
It's almost
Hard.
They probably
extremely
drowned you in lawyer work, basically, is what they
right.
do.
So you've
Yeah.
got to be able to cough up a ton of money for a really good attorney in order
Yes.
to do the secretary of HHS.
Yeah.
And which is kind of ironic, because when RFK becomes the secretary of HHS, people are going to be suing him for vaccine injury, which is like,
Ironic for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, at what point did you say you were working with your aha moment was working with people who kept working in insurance, and then you had an aha moment when you're like, I'm starting seeing people younger and younger and younger, right? Um, I want to say that my aha moment, because I'm not medically trained, um, my aha moment for me was masking.
Mhm.
The
yeah,
masking for me was like, so you know, I have a hard time thinking the most dangerous virus in the history of human mankind is stopped through a piece of cloth. Like I feel like,
especially when they were telling us to cut up t-shirts and just
yeah, and
wear.
just wear them over your. I'm like, yeah, I think masking did it for me. Masking, I was like, no, I'm, I got to stand on some ground here, right? And you know what makes me more upset at myself, and I have an upset feeling about this. I look back at pictures of my kid back then in preschool and kindergarten, and they're doing school events and in public, and my kid's got a mask. And I feel like I owe my kid the biggest apology for not being like, I ain't doing that. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And I'm a big reader. I've read, um, I read really, like I was into 1984 before 1984. I'm a big Aldous Huxley fan from Brave New World. I read all that stuff. I went down the road. Um, I've read Ordinary Men, which is the book, a crazy book about Polish police officers that pretty much followed the Nazi rule because they thought they were doing the right thing.
yeah.
And I get really disappointed in myself, and I really have this never again moment now. I read all that books, I have all that stuff. I know the history of World War II, and I know I studied authoritarianism and things like that, and I fell for it.
I think you and a lot of people, for me, it was because I have a background. I was like, they were saying you were going to mask 2-year-olds, and I'm like, how?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't
yeah.
even wear bows.
Do you have a 2-year-old? Do you have a
You
2-year-old?
know, a 2-year-old.
Do you have any? Yeah, yeah,
And the only way that you could possibly convince a 2-year-old to wear a mask would be to instill so much fear into them, because they're very dependent on, your energy, like your energy and your, like, what you say and how you portray it. Um, but either way, there's no way that most people can wear a mask without actually putting themselves at more risk. So, when you're masking, there's very specific procedure that you use, right? Where you never touch the mask. If you touch the front of the mask, you have to throw that away. Your hand hygiene, all of these things are really, really important factors, because if you're touching the front of your mask that you've been blowing out of, and you carry your own set of bacteria and viruses with you, and then you're touching surfaces, well, now you're spreading stuff everywhere,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm no doctor, but
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
So instead of it being like dissipated into the air, now you have a concentrated vector by which you are now spreading stuff.
but to bring up what you said, to say that previously, people would think, "Oh man, he sits inside his house and watches Alex Jones all day wearing a tin hat."
Mhm.
Right? He's got an
Alex
aluminum
Jones
hat,
is-
right? He's watching Alex Jones. He's got an aluminum hat. He's looking up in the sky. He probably thinks he's got abducted by aliens. They gaslight you. They gaslight you to be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this guy's you're crazy."
Like you don't care about other
Like, yeah,
people.
you don't care about
That's
other
how they made you
people.
feel. Mhm.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
that was such a psyop, like to say that it's your fault that other people are getting sick. Never once having a conversation about how important it is to take care of your own health
Mhm.
so that you can be strong and resilient,
yeah,
right? Never having that conversation and always being somebody else's fault.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That
amazing
was
too. Now we got drones in the sky, people telling you it's aliens, and nobody cares because nobody's listening. Right? They're like, aliens in New Jersey,
Mhm.
they're all aliens. And everybody's like, what's for breakfast?
Yeah.
Because
They
nobody
don't-
believes you anymore. Nobody
Yeah.
believes you anymore. Nobody
Yeah.
believes it anymore, right?
Which is actually, I mean, coming from my world, it's actually been it's actually been a devastating path for me, because I I can tell you that if you have a trauma, if you have an emergency, there is no better place in the world to get care than the United States. Like, we are incredible
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, good.
at treating people who have, your life is hanging in the balance. Like, we can save you.
Hmm.
We have incredible technology, we have incredible interventions. Um, but like the lack of trust that we've allowed, because we've just been lied to so much, honestly, um now makes people question that. And
Mhm.
that to me has been devastating, because it is miraculous what we're able to do, the intervention.
Yeah. Yeah. My brother-in-law had a heart attack. I love his heart. I'm so grateful for his heart doctor. Right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had a broken neck and neck surgery. I love my doctor, right? I've had surgeries from broken, I am all for I'm so grateful for them. I really am. Like I'm really grateful. Like, my kid had an allergic reaction to something, and we went to, urgency care, and they took care of him. I'm so grateful for that. I just want to have the ability to ask questions.
Well, and also I think it's so important that we understand that there is a big difference between emergency care, urgent and emergent care, and preventative care. Like, we talk about them like they're the same thing. They're very different things. My son had aspirated part of a crayon a few months ago. Um,
Back to you always got to have your eyes on them, right?
Well,
Yeah.
first time we ever drop him off at the gym, like the little daycare for our gym, because I'm like, I'm getting back to the gym.
Yeah.
Mhm.
While he's in there, he aspirates part of a crayon. Never
No.
again.
Yeah, never again.
So I picked him up and like could instantly hear him wheezing and was like, crap.
Oh no.
They were able to go in, and we had this just truly godsend of a pulmonologist who fished the piece of the crayon out. Took 2 surgeries, but they got it. But they put him on really high dose steroids because they obviously want to protect his airway. And that led him to have we've spent the next 4 months battling some chronic health conditions with him. Like,
Mm.
he had head to toe eczema because his
Yep.
gut barrier was completely broken down. His immune system was under such an assault.
Hmm.
And so, this is where we had incredible emergency care, like the best, but then nothing after that. And it was up to me to like make sure that he made not just a full recovery from getting the crayon out, but a full recovery back to true health, where he's not going to be dealing with, with this, permeable gut for the rest of his life,
Oh
where
yeah, right. Hmm.
is gonna, like, his immune system is strong again. Like, we've really, I mean, I've put in the work to get him back to true health, not just out of the emergency, but back to health.
Right.
No.
What have you been doing? Just because there's probably a ton of moms that are in your shoes, what do you do with your kids to make sure that they have, like, or I guess after his surgery and after he dealt with all of his health issues, what have you done with your
Yeah.
son?
Oh my gosh, we've like thrown the book at it. Um, so everything from like external treatments, I use primarily pure beef tallow lotion on him, um, from head to toe, and he gets a bone broth based protein powder drink once a day for all of the collagen to rebuild his gut
Hmm.
lining. He gets we give him like a slew of multivitamins, vitamins, and minerals to make sure that he's getting like everything he needs on a cellular level to produce enough electromagnetic charges,
Hmm.
and that he's able to absorb everything. Um, we do lots of sunshine, like outside, and we live in Florida, so this is possible here.
Yeah.
Outside, like in just his diaper for 20-30 minutes a day, multiple times a day if possible, to make sure that he's getting that, like, the sunshine. His vitamin D levels are good. We had him blood tested. We had stool testing done, to map his gut so I could target some probiotics, because um, I, I knew something was not balanced in his gut. So we figured out exactly what he needs for a probiotic, so that we weren't just like throwing stuff at the wall, but we could target that. Um, Sleep, like, we are making sure that he got and continues to get really good quality sleep. Um, that's always a priority in
Hmm.
our house, but especially during, this recovery period, because you can't heal if you're not sleeping.
Right.
Those are the big things that we've done. I mean, we've tried like other things here and there. We've done a lot of food eliminations for him.
Oh,
So
how fun
very
was it to do food elimination on a child with diaper in a diaper? Yeah, that's working. Yeah, it's hard
Crazy
to do.
though,
It's
you
hard.
didn't
Yeah,
say, crazy you didn't say any medicine. There's
yeah,
no
yeah,
medicine there whatsoever.
yeah,
no, no
yeah.
medication.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and honestly, he went from having literally head to toe eczema, um, to his skin is beautiful and perfect.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
prednisone is one of those ones. My kid recently had a cough, ear infection. Took him to the doctor, he got an antibiotic, and they gave him a plethora of things. And one of the things I didn't do was the prednisone. Yeah, just from an immune system side of it, right? I'm not against medicine. I don't hate medicine, right? I mean, some things have its value, but I was kind of like, yeah, I'm not, I'm not. Prednisone is one of those ones that I'm kind of questioning. One of those ones I have a lot of questions about.
If it was like almost any other circumstance, I would not have agreed to steroids.
Yeah,
Um, but we had to. He had to have that because the steroids would prevent any airway inflammation, and obviously his breathing is going to be the
Yeah.
most important thing.
Do
So
you connect any of your education? And what I want to do is um what I want to do is maybe as we close, maybe um enable other parents, right? The information that you used to help your son and to help your children, or to even parent your children, right? Uh, people, I don't want people to say, um, well, she did that because she's a nurse.
mhm.
As we finish, right? Because they're going to see that and be like, well, she's a nurse. She knows all that stuff. All right. Can you, in our final conversations, encourage parents of where the information is out there, that what you just did with your child or your children, that's available to people.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's available to people.
So
It's not
first
because you're a
of all,
nurse.
don't you don't have to follow the mantra of like trust the experts. Okay. You can become your own expert. You can learn things. Just because people have PhD behind their name or whatever doesn't mean that they know more than you.
Hmm.
You know your family, you know your body, you know your children better than anybody else.
Mhm.
Period.
Yeah,
So you have to, I think one of the things that has been lost in motherhood, in an era where we have a lot of experts, we have a lot of information, is moms have lost the connection to their own intuition, and they are afraid to follow their own intuition, and just kind of like stripping out all the noise and listening to your own intuition is one of the most important things that I think you can do as a mother. Um, and then following that intuition and looking for answers. And like we've tried, for my son, I tried a bunch of stuff that didn't work, and that's okay. Like it's a process, it's a learning process. But I followed my intuition that like he was out of the emergency phase, but he wasn't healthy. So, like following my intuition to get him healthy. How do I do that? Well, it's trial and error. But there are so many resources that are available. Um, you will have to look, and you're going to have to try things, and you're going to have to pay attention to what your family, what your child, what you as an individual need.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's up to you. But again, it's you're accountable to it, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I really, um, would you ever be open to a part two?
Yeah,
I
for
guess
sure.
there's just so many things, so many questions I have now, and so many things I would like to talk about. It does carry credibility. You know, I don't, I'm not one that falls for the fallacy of authority.
Right.
I also think that's a personality thing with me, right? Like
Yeah.
I was a pretty defiant child, so there's a little bit of defiance. I can sometimes confuse the fallacy of authority with my own personal defiance towards culture sometimes, I guess. But uh it does help people. It does help people that you have a nursing background, regardless of what you want. It does, you do carry some credibility, and it
Well,
is
I can,
helpful for people to hear that.
from having a nursing background, like I've seen the entire range of the healthcare system, right? I've seen from from bedside, like through executive suites,
Mm,
and I understand the system as a whole and what the system can offer. And because of that, I can tell you definitively, then there is nobody who is able to take care of your health except for you.
Mhm.
People can help you along the way, but it is up to you to do it.
yeah. Um, Thank you very much for taking time. You have a busy home. I acknowledge your busy home. I'm glad you have met your children. I love it. I love to see the human side that you don't see sometimes on social media, and your willingness to come on. Um, Thank you
What's
very much for your
great is that
message.
most of the time I show up on social media like with no makeup or anything and just
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like raw and real.
But
Yeah.
that's how we like it too. You know, like
Yeah.
that's real human connection in my opinion. Like I'm not gonna give you somebody that I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it's
I
important.
I thank you for it does take bravery on social media in in the medical field to share what you share. So again, I thank you for coming on and
And good luck with baby number four.
good luck with baby number 4. All right. Yeah.
Any day.
All right.
Yeah, I know. I
Thank
know. That's
thank you.
amazing.
Thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
This is
With all due respect.